Somewhere along the way, you learn to make yourself smaller. Not all at once, not through a single decision, gradually, incrementally, through 1,000 small moments that each asked you to reduce yourself a little, to need less, express less, want less, take up less space, until the reduced version became so familiar that you stopped noticing it was a reduction, until the smallness started feeling like just who you were, until the distance between who you actually are and who you have been presenting yourself as became invisible because you had been maintaining it for so long. This video is about that distance, about what created it, about what it costs you to maintain it, and about what becomes available, what actually becomes possible in your relationships, your work, your daily experience, when you stop pretending to be less than you are, not because you have finally fixed everything that needs fixing, not because the fear goes away or the conditioning dissolves or the patterns that got you here suddenly stop having any pull, but because you make a decision, conscious, deliberate, grounded in genuine self-understanding, that the performance of smallness is no longer something you are willing to maintain, that the full version of you, however imperfect, however unpolished, however different from the carefully managed version you have been presenting, deserves to be lived. This is voice without ego, and this conversation is for the person who is ready to stop pretending. There was a woman named Brittany who had been pretending for so long that she had forgotten that pretending was pretending. She was good at her job. She was reliable in her relationships. She was by every external measure of functioning, contributing, reasonably successful adult human being moving through her life in ways that looked entirely normal from the outside. What was not visible from the outside, what Brittany herself had largely stopped being able to see clearly because she had been maintaining it for so many years, was the gap. The specific, consistent, quietly exhausting gap between the version of herself she showed to the world and the version that actually existed underneath. The version that had opinions she rarely stated because stating them felt risky. The version that had ambitions she rarely pursued because pursuing them felt presumptuous. The version that had feelings she rarely expressed because expressing them had too often in the past resulted in those feelings being treated as problems rather than truths. The version that wanted things genuinely, deeply, with the kind of specific wanting that knows exactly what it is reaching for, and had learned to suppress the wanting so thoroughly that she sometimes struggled to identify what she actually wanted. When someone asked her directly, the pretending had become structural. It was not a performance she put on consciously before she entered rooms. It was the architecture of how she moved through the world, and she was exhausted by it in the way that people are exhausted by things they have stopped consciously noticing, not the acute exhaustion of something immediately overwhelming, but the accumulated, cellular, bone-deep exhaustion of something that has been running continuously for a very long time. Here's my first question for you, and I want you to answer it honestly in the comments, because I know some of you are going to recognize exactly what I am describing. How long have you been maintaining a gap between the version of yourself you show and the version that actually exists underneath? Not a small gap. Everyone has some version of social presentation. A significant gap. A gap that costs you something to maintain. a gap that you are aware of when you are honest with yourself. How long has that been there? I want to know. There was also a woman named Stephanie who had a different relationship with her own smallness. Brittany's smallness was quiet, a reduction in expression and ambition, and the claiming of space that happened gradually and had become invisible through familiarity. Stephanie's smallness was loud. It announced itself constantly in the form of self-criticism, in the ongoing internal commentary that evaluated everything she did against an impossibly high standard and found it wanting, in the way she dismissed her own accomplishments before anyone else could, minimizing them, contextualizing them, finding reasons why they did not count or did not reflect anything genuinely significant about who she was. She had been doing this for so long that she had a name for it. She called it being realistic, being appropriately humble, not getting ahead of herself, not making claims she could not fully justify. She thought of it as a form of intellectual honesty, and it was genuinely difficult for her to see until something happened that forced question that what she was calling realism was actually something else, a deeply embedded, thoroughly rehearsed, completely automatic habit of preemptive self-diminishment, of making herself smaller before anyone else could, of being the first to point out her own limitations so that no one else's pointing out could catch her off guard. She thought she was being honest. She was actually being afraid. And the difference between those two things, between genuine intellectual honesty and fear dressed up as intellectual honesty, is one of the most important distinctions available in the work of becoming fully yourself. Have you ever caught yourself doing this? Minimizing something you had done before anyone else could? Being the first to point out your own limitations? Calling it humility or realism when underneath it was actually something closer to self-protection? Tell me in the comments, because I think this pattern is more common than people admit and more costly than they realize. Let us talk about where the smallness comes from, because you were not born small. You were not born with the habit of suppressing your opinions or dismissing your accomplishments or making yourself less visible so that others would find you easier to be around. You were born with none of that. You were born with a completely different relationship with your own existence. You expressed what you felt when you felt it. You wanted what you wanted without apologizing for the wanting. You took up exactly the space that was appropriate to who you were without monitoring whether the space was too much. The smallness was learned. It was installed by specific experiences in specific environments at specific points in your development, usually before you had the awareness to examine what was happening or the tools to resist it. Someone communicated through words or silence or withdrawal or the specific quality of their reaction to you when you were fully yourself, that the full version of you was somehow problematic, too loud, too needy, too honest, too intense, too much, and you did what intelligent, adaptable beings do when their environment gives them consistent feedback. You adapted. You learned to edit. You learned to present a version of yourself that generated less friction, that produced less of the withdrawal and the silence and the specific looks that communicated you were being too much. You learned to be smaller, and the learning was so thorough and so early and so consistently reinforced by subsequent experiences that it stopped feeling like learning. It started feeling like just who you were. The smallness became identity, and that The moment the learned smallness becomes indistinguishable from genuine identity is the moment it becomes most costly, because now you are not just performing smallness, you are living it as though it were the truth about you, when it never was, when it is not, when it has never been anything other than an adaptation that outlived its original purpose. Brittany had a specific moment when the gap became visible to her in a way it had not been before. She was in a meeting at work, the kind of meeting she had been in hundreds of times, the kind where ideas were being discussed and directions were being set and input was being solicited from the people in the room. And she had an idea, a genuinely good one. She knew it was good with the specific internal certainty that comes when something clicks into place cleanly and completely. She felt the idea arrive. She started to speak. And then, so quickly it was almost simultaneous with the beginning of the impulse to speak, something stopped her. Not an external interruption. Something internal. A rapid, automatic, barely conscious evaluation of the idea that found reasons it might not land well. That imagined the possible responses to it, the skepticism, the counter-arguments, the possibility of being wrong in front of people, and decided the risk was not worth taking. And she stayed quiet, let the meeting continue. Let someone else eventually say something in the vicinity of what she had been about to say. Not as good, not as fully formed, but close enough that the moment for her version of it had passed. And she drove home that evening with a feeling she could not immediately name. It was not quite anger, not quite sadness, something more specific than either of those. The feeling of having been the obstacle between herself and something she wanted to do, of having gotten in her own way with such efficiency and such automaticity that the getting in the way had been completed before she had fully registered it was happening. And she thought, how many times have I done this? Not just in meetings, everywhere. How many times has the automatic self-reduction happened before I even consciously arrived at the impulse it was? Reducing. The answer, she realized, was more times than she could count. And that realization, the specific, uncomfortable, genuinely clarifying realization that the smallness was not something being done to her by the world, but something she was doing to herself, so automatically she had stopped noticing, was the beginning of everything. Have you ever gotten in your own way so efficiently that you were the obstacle before you even registered the impulse? Tell me about it in the comments, because I think this is one of the most universal and least discussed forms of self-betrayal available to a human being. Here is something that sounds simple, but is actually one of the most important things in this entire conversation. The full version of you, the version that has opinions and ambitions and needs and genuine wanting, and the specific kind of presence that does not pre-edit itself into acceptability. Before entering rooms, that version is not a problem to be solved. It is not something that needs to be fixed or refined or made more palatable before it is appropriate to present to the world. It is not too much. It was never too much. What it was, what the experiences that taught you to suppress it were actually telling you, was that it was too much for specific people in specific contexts, who had specific limitations in their capacity to receive it. And that is a completely different thing. People who were not able to hold your full presence, who needed you smaller to feel comfortable, were not accurate judges of whether your full presence was appropriate. They were accurate reporters of their own limitation, and you reasonably, understandably, with the adaptive intelligence of someone trying to survive in an environment that kept giving you feedback about your size, interpreted their limitation as evidence about your nature. You concluded from their discomfort that you were too much, when the accurate conclusion would have been that they were not enough, not in a judgmental sense, not in the sense that they were bad people or that their limitation was something they chose, but in the sense that the fit was wrong, that they did not have the capacity to receive what you were offering, and that the mismatch was a fact about the fit, not a fact about your worth. Stephanie's moment came through feedback she received on a piece of work she had done. She had produced something she was quietly proud of, genuinely proud in the specific way. She was almost never genuinely proud of anything, because the automatic self-minimization usually got there first and found the flaws before the pride could fully form. But this time the pride had formed first. She had looked at what she had done and thought, this is good, actually good. Not good for me given my limitations, good. And then she had shared it, and the feedback had been not negative exactly, but not what she had hoped for. Muted, qualified, appreciative of specific elements while reserving judgment on the whole. And what happened next is what she later identified as the most important moment in her understanding of her own smallness. The feedback arrived, and immediately, before she had fully processed what was being said, before she had had any time to evaluate whether the feedback was accurate, the automatic self-minimization engaged. Of course, it was not as good as she had thought. What was she thinking, being proud of something so prematurely? She should have known. She always did this, got ahead of herself, thought something was better than it was, made the embarrassing mistake of valuing her own work before confirming that others found it valuable. The automatic response was complete and operational and deeply familiar before the rational evaluation had even begun. And then something different happened. For the first time, for reasons she could not fully explain, she noticed the automatic response, saw it operating, watched it engage with the speed and the efficiency of something that had been practiced thousands of times, and she thought, wait, is this accurate? Is the feedback actually telling me the work is not good? Or is the automatic response just doing what it always does, finding the quickest available evidence that I was wrong to value myself? She looked at the feedback again, more carefully, without the automatic interpretation already applied to it, and she realized the feedback was not saying what the automatic response had translated it as saying. The feedback was genuinely mixed. Some of it was useful criticism she could learn from. Some of it was not relevant to what she had actually been trying to do. None of it was saying what the automatic minimization had immediately translated it as saying, that she had been foolish to be proud, that the pride itself was the error. The automatic response had not been reporting accurately. It had been doing what it always did, finding confirmation for the smallness regardless of what the actual evidence said, and seeing that clearly, seeing the automatic process operating separately from the actual evidence changed something. Not immediately, not completely, but genuinely. She could see the pattern, and visible patterns can be worked with consciously rather than simply obeyed. Now let us talk about what it actually takes to stop pretending. Not the inspiring version of this conversation, that makes it sound straightforward, the honest version, because stopping the pretending genuinely, durably, in ways that show up in the small daily moments rather than just in the grand gestures is harder than most people expect. Not because you lack the capacity, but because the pretending has infrastructure. It has been maintained for so long and so consistently that it has become embedded in how you think about yourself, in the automatic responses you have to situations, in the way you interpret feedback and evaluate opportunities and decide what you are and are not allowed to want. The infrastructure does not disappear because you decide you want to stop pretending. It remains, and you have to work against it consciously, repeatedly, without expecting the resistance to simply evaporate because you have named what it is. The first thing that stopping the pretending actually requires is the willingness to be uncomfortable, not suffering, not unnecessary pain, but the specific, manageable, genuinely productive discomfort of doing things differently when the automatic response is pulling strongly toward the familiar, smaller version of yourself. The discomfort of stating your opinion when the automatic response wants to stay quiet, of expressing what you feel when the automatic response wants to manage and minimize, of pursuing what you genuinely want when the automatic response is generating a list of reasons why the wanting is presumptuous or the pursuing is risky. That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you're doing something different. And different, after years of the same, always feels uncomfortable before it starts feeling normal. Brittany started with something small. She made a decision, not a dramatic announcement, just a quiet internal commitment that she was going to state her opinion in the next meeting she attended. Not every opinion, one, clearly, without the layers of qualification and hedging and preemptive apology that usually surrounded anything she said that might be disagreed with. Just one clear statement of what she actually thought. She was more nervous about this than she expected to be. The nervousness itself surprised her. The fact that something so ordinary, something that people did in meetings every day, without apparent anxiety, felt genuinely difficult in a way that revealed how thoroughly the smallness had become embedded. She did it anyway. She said the thing she thought, clearly, once, without immediately softening it into ambiguity. And the response was ordinary, not the catastrophic rejection her nervous system had apparently been bracing for, not the specific quality of withdrawal and discomfort that she associated with being too much. Ordinary, some agreement, some pushback, normal professional exchange. And she drove home that evening feeling something she had not expected to feel. Not triumph, not relief exactly. Something more subtle than either of those. The specific, quiet, genuinely earned satisfaction of having been actually present in a situation rather than managing herself through it from a slight distance. Of having shown up as herself rather than as the carefully reduced version, even just for one opinion, even just for one moment. The satisfaction of that, the specific quality of it, was different from anything that pretending had ever produced, and that difference was enough to make her want to try again. What stops most people from stopping the pretending is not the absence of desire to stop. Most people who have been maintaining a gap between the full version of themselves and the presented version are aware of the exhaustion of it. They want to stop. They intend to, stop. They sometimes feel brief periods of stopping, moments when the pretending falls away and the full version is simply present. And they recognize those moments as something more real and more nourishing than the managed performance. The desire to stop is usually not the missing ingredient. What is missing is the belief that stopping is actually safe, that the full version of you, presented genuinely, without the pre-editing, without the habitual reduction, will not produce the specific consequences that the pretending was originally designed to prevent. The withdrawal, the rejection, the specific quality of being too much for someone who cannot hold what you are offering. And here is the honest truth about that fear. The full version of you will sometimes produce those consequences. Not because the full version of you is too much, but because some people, some environments, some relationships, some contexts genuinely do not have the capacity to hold what you are when you are fully present. And the pretending was always designed to prevent that experience, to make yourself small enough that even the people with limited capacity could hold you without discomfort. The cost of that design is that it prevents you from being accurately seen by the people who do have the capacity to hold you fully. Because if you are always presenting the reduced version, the pre-edited, pre-softened, pre-approved version, the people who could genuinely see and appreciate the full version never get the opportunity. You are protecting yourself from rejection by people who were never the right fit. And in doing so, you are also protecting yourself from genuine connection with people who are. Here's your question for the comments. This one is important, and I really want you to think about it honestly before you answer. What is one specific way you have been making yourself smaller in your relationships, in your work, and how you move through the world that you are ready to stop? Not someday. Now, what is one reduction you have been maintaining that you are going to consciously, deliberately, with full awareness of the discomfort it will involve, begin to undo? I am asking specifically because I think the difference between the people who actually change and the people who consume content about change without changing is specificity. Vague intentions to be more yourself do not change anything. Specific decisions about specific behaviors in specific context do. What is yours? Tell me in the comments. Stephanie stopped minimizing her work, not all at once, not perfectly, but she made a decision grounded in the specific moment of seeing the automatic pattern operating separately from the actual evidence, that she was going to try something different. She was going to let herself be proud of things before she had confirmed that others found them valuable. She was going to resist the automatic preemptive minimization long enough to actually evaluate the work honestly with the same standards she would apply to someone else's work rather than the impossibly high standards she applied to her own. She was going to practice this specific, uncomfortable, genuinely countercultural act of valuing herself before being invited to. It was uncomfortable. The automatic minimization did not disappear. It kept arising, quick, efficient, thoroughly practiced. But she started noticing it, and noticing it created a gap between the arising of the pattern and her response to it. In that gap she could choose, not always, not with perfect consistency, but more often than before, and more often was enough. It was enough to begin changing her relationship with her own work, with her own capacity, with the specific quietly revolutionary act of treating herself as someone worth taking seriously before anyone else had confirmed that she was. You are more than you have been living as, I want to say that directly and without qualification, not as encouragement, as an observation, as an accurate description of what is happening. When someone maintains a significant gap between their full self and their presented self for an extended period of time, you are more than what you have been showing, more capable, more interesting, more genuinely present and connective and alive. Default text when you are fully there rather than partially there behind the management. Not perfect. Not without limitation or difficulty or the ongoing need to grow and learn and change, but more, significantly more, and the world, the people in it, who have the capacity to genuinely receive what you are when you are fully yourself, is not well served by the reduced version, is not getting the best of what you have to offer, is not able to genuinely connect with the managed performance the way it could connect with the real thing. The pretending costs you. It also costs everyone who would have benefited from encountering the full version of you, but has only ever seen the reduction. Your opinions, your presence, your genuine way of being in the world, these are not problems to be managed. They are contributions. And the world, whatever portion of it you move through, is poorer for their absence and richer for their presence. Stop pretending to be less than you are, not because you have already achieved everything you want to achieve, not because you have finished growing or healing or becoming, but because the growing and healing and becoming happen better, faster, more genuinely, with more lasting results from the full version of you than from the reduced one. The full version is the one that can actually do the work. The reduced version is too busy maintaining the reduction to have much energy left over for anything else. Brittany did not become a different person. She did not undergo a dramatic transformation that made her unrecognizable to herself or to the people around her. What changed was smaller than that and more important than that. She became more consistently herself, more reliably present as the version of herself that had always been there but had been, intermittently, and then almost continuously, replaced by the managed smaller version. She stated her opinions more. She pursued things she wanted without waiting for permission or confirmation that the wanting was appropriate. She took up the space that was genuinely hers to take up without the ongoing background monitoring of whether the space was too much. And the thing that surprised her most, the thing she had not expected, and that she later said was the most significant discovery of the entire process, was how much easier it was. Not in the sense of comfortable, in the sense of sustainable. The pretending had required constant maintenance, constant monitoring, constant recalibration. The being herself required none of that. It was simply there, present, the version of her that had always been there, made available rather than managed, allowed to be present rather than curated into something that generated less friction. It was more sustainable than the pretending by such a large margin that she found it difficult to believe. She had maintained the pretending for as long as she had. The energy that had been going into the management was now available for other things, for the work she actually wanted to do, for the relationships she actually wanted to build, for the daily experience of her own life that she had been partially absent from for years. Stephanie learned the difference between genuine humility and habitual smallness. Genuine humility is the accurate assessment of your limitations, alongside an equally accurate assessment of your capabilities. It knows what it does not know and what it cannot do, and holds that knowledge without shame, while also knowing what it does know and what it can do and holding that knowledge without apology. Habitual smallness is different. It emphasizes the limitations and minimizes the capabilities, not because that is the accurate assessment, but because emphasizing limitations feels safer than claiming capabilities. Because capabilities claimed can be evaluated, can fall short, can fail publicly. Limitations pre-stated are protected. Nobody is surprised when you fail at something you already said you could not do. The habitual smallness is not honesty. It is risk management. And the cost of the risk management is that you never fully inhabit what you are actually capable of. Never give the capabilities the full expression and development and testing that would reveal what they can actually produce. You stay in the safe zone of pre-stated limitation and never find out what was available on the other side of it. And finding out a specific, irreplaceable, only available through doing process of discovering what you are actually capable of when you stop preemptively limiting your own reach is one of the most important things available to you. Not because achievement is the measure of worth, but because the full expression of your actual capabilities is part of what it means to be genuinely, fully, authentically alive. Here's what I want to leave you with. The full version of you, the version that is not managing itself into smallness, not preemptively reducing its own reach, not maintaining the gap between what it actually is and what it presents, is not a future version. It is not something you have to become. It is something you have to stop obscuring. The full version has been there the entire time, underneath the smallness, underneath the pretending, underneath the years of adaptation that taught you the reduction was necessary. It has been waiting, not impatiently, not with judgment about how long the waiting has taken, for you to stop pretending it was something other than what it is. And what it is, the full, unedited, genuinely present version of you, is enough. Not because it is perfect, but because it is real. And real, genuinely, and fully expressed is always more valuable than the most polished performance of something smaller. Stop pretending. Start showing up. The version of you the world actually needs is not the managed one. It is the real one, and it has been ready for longer than you know. This is voice without ego. Heal quietly, rise powerfully, and remember, you were never as small as you pretended to be.